Alessia. How's it going?
Hi, good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm very excited to talk to you. Thanks for taking the time.
Same here. I'm really excited.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this for a while because I spoke to you a little bit about this project that I'm doing. And most of my focus is based on like mindset and personal development. And I thought that you would be a really interesting person to talk to, having worked with you for the past 2 years on the Sincop8ed Noize Foundation, which we'll get into, but also knowing a little bit about your personal history and stuff. You got a
hmm
fascinating story. So, could you get started by just doing a brief introduction for the listeners?
Yeah, sure. So my name is pronounced Alessia, which is you nailed it, which is good. A lot of people get it weird. Alicia, all kinds. But yeah, it's actually Alessia. So yeah, so I moved to Canada. Let's try to start from the beginning.
Sure.
So my family was traveling a lot. They kind of took me everywhere. We traveled across Italy. I'm actually born and raised in this little hometown called Ribera in Italy, actually Sicily. So it's on the island and it's a really small town where everybody kind of knows each other and very small community. Yeah, one day my parents decided that they wanted to move somewhere. They weren't really sure where, but Canada seemed like, in the top list for quality of life and opportunities. So we just decided to go and check it out. And I was 12 at the time.
Wow.
So the first time we just kind of started exploring. First we started with Italy, but they weren't like super impressed because I was coming from a small town and we thought that like in the northern Italy things are going to be a little bit different.
Hmm.
But we weren't too impressed, so we decided to travel and explore Canada a little bit. We went to London, Ontario, Toronto, Hamilton. So yeah, we basically we went around a bit. And I didn't speak a word of English at the time. I was 12 years old, and I was just kind of like, started attending school. They kind of threw me in there, and the first day I was like, oh my god, what is going on?
That must have been an incredible challenge at that age.
Yeah, that was really hard. I think the teacher decided at some point just to give you some math, and because that's kind of a universal language, so just do the
Right.
math. So yeah, that was really challenging, and we just kept traveling until we actually decided to establish ourselves here in Montreal, and we've been here. It's been 12 years now, so
Wow.
it's been quite a while. And yeah, it's just been a huge change in my life. We just decided to pretty much like change our life entirely and move to a different country where we didn't really know anyone.
Yeah, that must have a huge impact on your development as a person, I guess. You ever
Yeah.
think about what it would have been like if you had stayed in Italy versus how you are now, having moved and had all of these new experiences?
Yeah, I always wonder that. I probably would have been studying at, there was a university in Bologna that I wanted to go to because they had the astronomy program. So I probably would have studied that and
That's so
not
cool.
not do the music thing at all. Or the event thing. So it just would have been a very different life for me because over there, it's just different. There's not the same kinds of opportunities in the music world, in the artistic world, and in the event industry as well. So it's just a little bit different.
Have you always been drawn to the music and events industry, or was that something that you picked up once you moved here?
I was always drawn to it. I actually studied classical piano at the music conservatory back in Sicily. And one day I just kind of decided like, look, I want to learn to play the piano. And I remember my dad was like, couldn't you pick like the flute or the violin or like a smaller instrument? You had to pick the biggest one. I was like, no, I want to learn to play the piano. And then one day he told me to go downstairs to get something, and he just like there was a piano right there. When I opened the door, I just found like a piano, and like I remember that memory was pretty amazing. So I always loved music. My mom plays guitar, my brother plays guitar. So yeah, we were just kind of like born and raised in a music family. I remember my mom was just always playing music at the house. We just never a moment without music. So we were just kind of raised always with music. So yeah, that definitely influenced me for sure.
That's great, musical family.
Yeah.
So that brings us, I guess, to the Syncopated Noise Foundation, which is
Mhm.
what you're currently working on. How about some background about that? I know all about it. I've been kind of
Yeah.
a participant in it for the past couple of years. But yeah, what?
Front line spectator.
I've kind of seen a lot of things happen over the past 2 years. But what can you say about it for people who aren't familiar, maybe with what it is?
Yeah, sure. So Syncopated Noise Foundation is a nonprofit organization. It's been operating since 2014, actually. I kind of took over the company, and it's been running for the past 7 years as a nonprofit with the goal to support emerging musicians. And we've been developing different projects and initiatives that support the music community. Because I remember just, playing shows here in Montreal and starting to kind of discover the music community and music industry. I felt like there were some resources that were kind of lacking. So I just kind of started, and that's how I went into the event industry afterwards. I basically started producing shows and organizing events when I was throughout my university studies. So that's when the foundation was really started to kind of become what it is today.
So in the midst of all this, over the past 2 years, you had a big monkey wrench thrown into your plans, which was the pandemic.
Yeah.
And for an organization that is focused on events,
Yeah.
it was a big challenge to overcome. And you did a remarkable job of kind of pivoting and changing your business strategy. And instead of using it as an excuse to stop or take a break, you
Mhm.
you took it as an opportunity to grow in a different direction, which I find amazing. So
Yeah.
like what was it that inspired you, and what kind of what gave you the drive to go through with it the way that you did?
Yeah. So basically, when the pandemic hit, I was like, okay, well, I studied science in university. I'm like, maybe I'm gonna need to go back to my degree now. What is going on? The industry just like disappeared overnight. All the work I used to do with the artists, even like the event work, everything just like just getting calls like, yeah, these events are not happening. These events are canceled. Like everything was canceled within 24 hours. All my projects, everything was canceled. So that was really hard, and I thought like, oh my god, these artists like would like what's going to be happening, like what are the opportunities that are going to be available during these times. So that's what inspired me to really keep going and trying to figure out other ways to continue the conversation with them and really understand what they were going through and just continue to be there to support them. So that's why we did a lot of webinar series. Like we were doing webinars with Zoom and like virtual events back when like very early on. Like people weren't even doing the virtual events at that time, like they were existing, but they weren't like, we were actually already producing, virtual conferences and webinars. It was right away. I was like, okay, now we're going virtual. It was just kind of intuitive for us to go in that direction. So it was cool because the foundation actually got discovered, internationally. So we had people tuning in from different countries, and we were able to promote our events internationally, which is something that we were limited before in doing. So we were able to actually access a lot more people with the virtual programming.
I think it's an interesting thing too, because it seems like the virtual side isn't necessarily going away just because live shows are going to start opening back up and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of good in a way that this gave us a boost to enter that space and start developing there kind of ahead of the curve, because
Yeah.
it is something that is going to be a long lasting side of the industry now, I think.
Yeah, we really started like honestly like right away. The second events were not possible in person, we just already were doing the virtual programming, and we're thinking like long term. And honestly, some events might not even go back to in person, because you just see the advantages of being able to engage with people, like talk to people everywhere and have attendees from all over the world. So there's definitely advantages to it. And then there's a hybrid model, which is also very interesting, where you're able to combine the in-person and the virtual, which is the best of both worlds. You're able to promote the event everywhere. You're able to have attendees from all over the world, and you can also have people in person who want to really attend the in-person experience.
Yep. I'll get maybe a little bit philosophical on you, but
Sure.
do you think that, so having come from a different country and having had to adapt to, a different lifestyle, learn new languages and stuff like that, do you think that had an impact in kind of developing you personally into a place where you could more easily respond to challenges and things like this? And if so, like, how do you think that has affected you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's actually what allowed me to continue working in an industry that was pretty much non-existent throughout the pandemic. And even just going back to events, it's been a whole other process again, just re-educating people on how we do this. So yeah, that definitely did play a huge role, and just kind of having to move to a new country and learning the language and even the culture. Like I still, there's still some jokes that sometimes I don't laugh with friends because I'm just like, I don't get it. And I think it's a cultural thing. I think it's just not that the jokes are bad. I think it's just the culture does play a huge role. And a lot of times people just they don't think about the fact that I'm not actually, from here. So, they tell me like, why you're not born and raised here? You're not from St. Leo, you know? So but it's something to keep in mind that, yeah, there is definitely cultural differences and things that I'm constantly learning. Even working in the industry and how things are done here, it's always a learning curve. And that's definitely helped me keep the foundation going and all my projects going, because I had to really adapt and learn to survive.
It's really cool, and it's awesome how you have embraced, the changes and like the new culture, and like you said, people don't find it obvious that you're not even from here,
Mhm.
which is, it's awesome, and it just speaks to your adaptability and your I guess the ease with which you kind of like respond to these challenges.
Thank you.
What do you think about the music industry, particularly here in Quebec and in Montreal, and like especially the live scene? Because we're kind of known as a music city, or at least we have been. But coming from Europe and things, maybe having seen shows there, how does it compare and contrast? Like, what is your opinion on Montreal as a music city?
Mhm. Well, it's interesting. There's definitely different dynamics, and I feel like for an artist that's trying to get their music heard, and as an emerging artist, like it's definitely not easy. Yeah, there's a community, they can play shows, but in terms of like getting your songs heard on the radio and working with big people in the music industry, I just find like there is an industry, but they also, I feel personally, they sometimes tend to push always the same bands over and over, giving little opportunity for the smaller bands to be heard and to be seen. So that's kind of the issue that I find. It's very monopolized type of industry where it's always kind of a circle of the same bands that are being heard, that are getting played on the radio, that are playing the big shows, the big opening slots. So it's really hard for artists that really want to be heard and discovered in the music industry. And that's why the foundation is just trying to give these artists a bit of a platform to be seen and to be heard, because it's maybe one day they'll be playing a show, and a big promoter or a music professional is going to see them and want to work with them, because if they're just at the mercy of people calling them and that trying to get them like opportunities, well, they might be waiting a long time.
Yeah, I know, as somebody who's been, playing in a band for over a
Mm.
decade, that it's tough to get seen and heard here because there's a lot of
It
noise and there's a
is.
lot of competition. And yeah, the live circuit is cool, but it seems as though people's attention is kind of limited, and it's really hard
Yeah.
to get people to notice just because there's so much else going on. But
Yeah,
um,
exactly.
I really like that kind of effort to support local artists, because we definitely want to encourage them. We
Hmm.
don't want the local scene to disappear.
Yeah.
It probably doesn't get as much recognition as it deserves, because there's some very talented, you know very how can I say, like, people who are making amazing music in the local scene that probably don't
It's
get the
true.
attention they deserve. um
Yeah, absolutely. And even like the major tours and festivals, like there's supposed to be a quota of artists that are local that are supposed to be on those bills. And it would be nice to have more variety on those lineups, and really that would take the agents to really go out to the shows and see the bands and check out the music and like the real music scene, the underground scene, you know, which is what keeps the little venues and little pubs and smaller venues open, because they play there and they attract people, so they're the entertainment. So without these bands, I mean, there wouldn't really be a music scene in Montreal, right?
Right, exactly. And speaking of smaller, pubs and venues, they've had a really hard time over the past 2 years.
Yeah.
And, I know a lot of them have closed down, which has been hard to see. A lot of them haven't had the opportunities to, pivot like the foundation has into different avenues. But what do you see as the future for like the local music scene? Is there any chance that it will bounce back and be the way it was before?
I think so. I think it's actually going to be better because, I mean, from what I'm seeing, like artists, bands want to play, you know? Some artists will feel discouraged and feel like they don't want to do this anymore. Actually, a lot of like members of like big bands have like quit the music industry altogether, you know? It's definitely going to be hard at the beginning. Like I've been seeing the transition back to live and even with events, and it's just, there's been a lot of, it has not been easy. It's almost like, it's incredible how people can just like forget. You know, in some festivals that happened that had some major issues, and it's like, yeah, because after a year or two of not doing this, like people get kind of out of it, you know. Sometimes you need to just kind of get back into it and remember how things are done, and then follow all the process. And it has not been easy getting back to in-person events, and some people are still worried about COVID, and it's not going to be easy. But I do feel like people are going to have a new appreciation for the arts moving forward, and they're going to maybe avoid just staying on the couch and watching movies, and actually going out there and checking out the live music scene in Montreal, which is like you said, there's a lot of really talented artists in here.
Yeah, I think it's definitely been missed, and I've spoken to a lot of
Mhm.
people who are very excited to go back and see their first concert,
Yeah.
back after this whole ordeal. So it's definitely something that a lot of people are looking forward to, and
Hmm.
it's definitely been a challenge. But um, it's rare that good things happen without some challenge. So I think it will come back strong.
Yeah.
Um, so going back to the foundation and your role as president, I know you spend a huge amount of time investing in this. But how do you keep it together, and how do you balance work and life, and make sure that you're not burning yourself out? Because as a business owner, I feel like that's a huge issue with a lot of people. Burnout is always kind of like around the corner, and if you don't take care of yourself mentally, physically, you can go down a bad path. So what's your secret?
Yeah, absolutely. So like anytime people take on like an entrepreneurial project, you have to understand that you're basically trading your free time for work, seeing your friends, seeing your family, significant other, like you're giving up that time to work on your business. So you have to be prepared to be able to do that. And some people understand and some people won't, but at the end of the day, you really have to dedicate the time that it needs to be able to build a business. Like keep in mind, like if something doesn't get done, a lot of times it just you don't have somebody else handling it for you. Like you have to do it a lot of times, right? So it's not easy. It's definitely not easy. And over the years, I've just learned a lot how to prioritize projects. Prioritize deadlines, be super organized, and yeah, and also like it's super important in business to actually have a mentor, to have somebody that can guide you and that you can talk to or cry to most of the time, and just talk about your struggles. It's not a therapist. It's really, but it's like a mentor. It's kind of like that. It's somebody that you can talk about, and ask questions, about the business, and just an external opinion. Because sometimes who are the people advising you about your business? They're your friends or your family, or the people that you work with. But sometimes you really need to have an external like view, an external take from somebody who's been doing this in the music industry for many years, or in whatever industry you're in. So having a mentor, having a good accountant, just like things that initially you don't think about. But yeah, as long as you have a good kind of like support system around you, and you have good people that you work with, that, you know, will support you, and that, you know, believe in your projects, and you have a, like I said, a good support system of even people that can support you in other ways, like mentors and people that can help you also in the financial side. Because a lot of business owners, they don't really know what they get into, right? A lot of stuff they don't teach you in school, on how to run a business, how to register a company, and how to do accounting.
Don't get me started on all the things they don't teach you in school. There's a long
Right.
list.
There's definitely a long list. So actually a big part of the job is really like the learning and researching how to do things that, you know, they just like you just don't know, you haven't learned, nobody's told you how to do them, you know. So a lot is about like trial and error and making mistakes, and then learning from the mistakes and getting better at it. But you really have to also kind of have the personality for it, you know, just to kind of realize that you're gonna, you know, people are gonna say no to you. Like you're gonna make mistakes, because that's what entrepreneurs, you know, for sure you're gonna make some mistakes along the way, you know. But just you have to be willing to kind of like fall and get back up, and be strong enough to kind of like, you know, be able to handle it. But it's definitely not easy. I'm still learning on a day-to-day, like how to balance. I still haven't found the right formula for just balancing my life and you know, work and running an organization, which is, it's a lot.
Yeah, I guess it's an ongoing process of kind
Yeah.
of, and it's a balance that probably changes depending on what happens in your life, you know, from year to year. You know, we go through
Yeah.
different things, so we can handle different workloads at different times.
Yeah, exactly. And one thing I've learned too is like, it's okay to take breaks. You know, you don't always have to run. You can run and then you take a walk, and then you run and then you take a, like, you don't always have to be like, go, go, go all the time. You know, you can take breaks. You can, you know, at the end of the day, the business is going to be there, but your health won't.
Yeah.
So it's good. Like I'm learning that now. Like I had to learn it the hard way. Like, okay, like sometimes it's good to take breaks and to really, because you know, when you're running a company, an organization, whatever it is you're doing that's entrepreneurial, you have to have that time to, like, you know, be creative and think about the things, the project and the end goal and the vision. So you need to have the time to do that. And that's not even project delivery or execution. That's just creative process and thinking about the things that you want to do and the direction that you're going. And sometimes you want to reduce some of the things that you're doing and focus on other ones. And it's always a process you're refining, and your business is constantly evolving. So this applies to, I guess, you know, any business, you know, it constantly evolves, and you have to really continue to have a vision, as long as you have a clear idea of the direction that you're going, and then you can figure out how to get there.
Totally. And I feel like you need to be able to enjoy the process, right?
Yeah.
Because, you know, having an end goal and getting there, if you destroy yourself along the way,
Yeah.
then it's not going to feel rewarding. Like the journey has to be a big part of it too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like it has to be, you have to enjoy it all along, you know, even sometimes, like, you know, you beat yourself up. Oh, you could have done this better. You could have done that. It's like, you have to enjoy the process of making mistakes and failing, to be honest.
Do you enjoy that process of failing and making mistakes?
Yeah. I, not in the moment, but then I realized like, it's good that this thing happened, because then it taught me this lesson that I had to learn to get better, you know. In the moment, you just don't see it though. You're like, what happened?
What kind of personality do you have to be able to bounce back quickly from, you know, failures and stuff like that? Because it's something that a lot of people struggle with, and nobody likes to be told no, or have a door slammed in their face,
Yeah.
or, you know, not get not have things turn out the way that they envisioned it. But like, how do you deal with those situations?
You just really have to be confident in yourself, your abilities to really move forward, like, you know, to achieve your dreams. You know, if you believe in the end goal and you believe in your dreams, you know, nothing can really stop you. You know, if you're really determined, because if you're not determined, it's going to break you for sure. The first challenge, the first issue, the first you know, like the first no, like you're going to quit, right? So I think it's really about, you know, just really focusing on the end goal and being determined, and understanding that it's kind of like part of the process. And you know, 10 doors are going to close and one is going to open, and you know, you're just going to get there in a different way, maybe not through the path you were envisioning, but maybe in a different way.
Yeah, it only takes one door often. So,
Yeah, that's what you need.
yeah,
If you can just like, take having 10 slammed in front of you, then it's good. But it's there. Sometimes success is like very close, but you just don't see it because you're not willing to work hard enough to get there. It just takes time. It's not like, I don't believe in like overnight like success and like overnight like, it takes time. It takes time to build things. It takes time to really like, create something meaningful, like a company, a project. It's really something that takes time. It doesn't happen overnight, and a lot of people I find just they don't have the patience for it to wait. But it's really something you need to work on the long term to be able to see the results, and sometimes it takes years before that
well,
even happens.
they always say that every overnight success has a lifetime of work leading up to it.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah, I truly believe that.
absolutely. I like what you said about taking breaks and, being like taking care of yourself, because,
Mhm.
it's so easy to get caught up in this mentality of having to grind. And one of these kind of trendy things is like the hustle culture, where it's like, if you're not
Yeah,
working 24/7, then
yeah.
you're not you're not going fast enough. You're not going to achieve your goals quickly. But some people take that to an unhealthy place. And I think that's dangerous in a lot of ways.
Yeah, for sure. And we hear that a lot, like hustling all the time is great and, it leads to places, but like, no, sometimes you need to take breaks and you need to say no.
Absolutely.
So I think that's something that like I didn't used to do, but then I had to do because like you live and learn. And then like, look, the second like you start struggling with, your health, and, everything else falls apart. So ultimately that's the most important thing.
I couldn't agree more. What is the thing that you're most proud that sorry, what is the thing that you're most proud of achieving with the Syncopated Noise Foundation?
Uh, I'm honestly proud of like all the projects that we were able to deliver, especially during the pandemic. We won the 2021 Top Rated Award. I'm just really happy that we still continue to get support and to be able to do projects and things. We actually have we're gonna announce these yet, but we're gonna have another. We created Immerse Montreal during the pandemic, which is an immersive show, it's hybrid, and it has an in-person component, and the virtual component is actually in VR, using virtual reality technology, which is booming. So that's one of the projects that we started to develop. We did kind of like a pilot project event, which went really well, and we want to bring that project back in the fall. So we want to definitely continue to produce this event. So that one I'm also really proud of, because not only were we trying to find ways to do things, we were also trying to do things and innovate and do things differently and learn new technologies and really explore the potential of virtual, because whether we want it or not, it's not going to go away.
And you know what? I can confirm, because I was there, that it was a very cool event. And I was
Mm-hmm.
personally impressed, because I had never seen anything like that before. Put a VR show that was a hybrid, that had an audience in attendance physically, and then being able to watch it and stream it at home was pretty incredible. And
Yeah, and we pulled it off with such a small team, and we're able to make it happen. And like, not to brag, but like Meta did a VR event with the Foo Fighters, and like it didn't go that well. People were not able to access, all kinds of technical problems, and that's like a big company, you know. So for a little team to be able to pull off an event that did not have any like technical difficulties, which is always happen at events, of course, that was a big success for sure.
amazing. So yeah, I'm very excited for another event like that to happen. I'm sure it's going to
Mm-hmm.
even top the first one, which was already great.
And
Um,
hopefully there will be less restrictions, and it'll be easier, because coordinating events during the pandemic with all the restrictions, that's another thing. It's another challenge.
yeah, and so let's get into that. I mean, what were
Mhm.
some of the specific challenges that were presented by the pandemic, between, I guess, not being able to put on shows at all,
Yeah,
and then, having to deal with restrictions once they were allowed? Like, what was the most
yeah.
challenging thing about it for you personally?
I think the most challenging thing for me, and also I feel for everybody, was the opening and closing, Because the thing is, the reality is, when you're planning events, you're planning for the future, right? So you're trying to have direction as to what the guidelines might be in like, 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, depending on the size of the event. So we're always planning in the future, and the guidelines were just like in the immediate present, and you don't know what's going to happen in between, right? And then you're trying to predict and guesstimate what's going to happen, and then by the time you get closer to the event, the guidelines change. So it was just so hard. Like it still is, honestly, because there's the measures have been obviously relaxing, but we just don't know how things are going to evolve, and it's just such an uncertain industry to be working in, because like even the artists, like there was a point where they couldn't even rehearse. So it was like they couldn't even rehearse in the studios, or they had to do so during the day. And then a lot of these artists have jobs and stuff, so there goes their music projects. And then they didn't play for a long time, so they went rehearse, and then when shows started happening, they just weren't ready to play. And now it's just like things are reopening, so everyone's excited, but I'm just always like cautious and just saying like, okay, this is great. Things are moving along. But the point is to be ready in the case that this does something like another lockdown happens. So Immerse Montreal is the type of project where whatever happens, we'll be able to do it. Because we've done it during the restrictions, and we the seating, and people couldn't be standing, the distancing, the masks, all the protocols, we're still able to pull it off. So if that's gonna happen again, well, we're ready.
That's great. The uncertainty definitely was hard on everybody.
Yeah.
Do you have a message for musicians and artists now, after having gone through the whole ordeal over the past 2 years? Like what do you have to say to the community coming out of this?
So I think a lot of lessons were learned, and I'm sure like a lot of artists have been able to kind of prioritize other things, and which is good too. Sometimes, like I said, breaks are great. Sometimes you need them. But I think it's important to realize that it's been a difficult year. It's been a couple of difficult years. So it's important to prioritize yourself, your health, your mental health, and take breaks from projects when needed. And at the same time, when you're ready to resume, just kind of just do it just always be, don't lose that passion towards your projects, and don't lose hope, because it's definitely hard. We're dealing with very uncertain times. So it's important to try to remain motivated and continue to work on your projects, and just be flexible. And I think that this whole pandemic has taught us to be very resilient.
Definitely. I think if there's one positive that we can take away from it, it's the resiliency that we've kind of been forced to develop.
Yeah, no choice.
No choice. You just got to roll with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Life goes on no matter what. Are there any other projects on the horizon that you want to talk about, whether it's with Sincop8ed or with anything else that's going on with you?
Yeah, so the foundation is in the process of obviously developing its projects for the new year, and obviously 2022. But in the meantime, I've taken the time to work on my second EP, instrumental EP. As a solo artist, I released the first album, but it's been a few years now, and I'm due for a second EP. So I've been working really hard on it. For those who don't know my music, it's very instrumental, very piano oriented, a lot of synths, and one of my biggest influences is Hans Zimmer. I used to be like, the kind of person that like stays at the end for like at the movie theater just to hear the music, like the score. That's awesome. And see who wrote it. But yeah, it's very cinematic. There's also a lot of like rock and electronic elements. The name of the EP is going to be Echinopsis, which is it's actually like the cactus plant, which makes this really crazy flower, by the way. It's like huge, and it only lasts 24 hours, and it's beautiful. So I just wanted to create something that was kind of around the theme, and there's definitely some pandemic themed tracks in there, because I was very inspired by it was affecting me. For sure. But yeah, that's gonna come out this year.
Oh, it's cool. It's great that did you work on that entire thing during the pandemic?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've been working on that throughout, and yeah, no, it's been really great. I'm working with some great people and producers, and I'm really excited. It's kind of like I've always been a fan of like movie soundtracks, so it's very heavily inspired by that, and I can't wait to release it. It's been in the
Amazing.
works.
Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Congratulations on the previous work that you've released. That's, you know, there you've put out some other great songs too.
Thank you.
And congratulations on the foundation and for still being here in 2022.
We survived.
We survived, and I'm looking forward to another great year and doing some great stuff and continuing to support the music community, Canada-wide, I guess.
Internationally.
Internationally, yeah, starting with Canada and going worldwide.
And going worldwide, exactly.
Yeah, it's a really great thing. It's an awesome cause and something that I relate to personally. And I wish there were more organizations doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
So yeah, it's really important.
It really makes, you know, like I started with the music and being a musician, but really this kind of like makes everything like, you know, just kind of like worthwhile. You know, it's hard, the music industry, it's really difficult, but you know what, if you can help an emerging artist be heard and be discovered, like it's just so satisfying.
That's great to hear, and it's an awesome message to share. So with that, I guess we'll wrap it up. Thank you so much for taking the time, and yeah, I can't wait to release this conversation and share it with my musician friends and give them some great insights and everything.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Rob, for having me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Let's do it again soon.
Sounds good.
All right.
Thank you. Bye.